Space flights are incredibly dangerous and require bravery at the level of madness. Imagine for an instant being alone hundreds of miles from Earth and witnessing something your humanly frame of reference can't comprehend. Now, imagine having to clean out your spacesuit after having the crap scared out of you. Yes, astronauts are our bravest folks. They shoot up to that infinite mystery known as the cosmos, not knowing what waits for them on the other side. They just have a mission, and sometimes incomprehensible things happen. Astronauts know a thing or two about taking risks. Cases of big failures of space starts are known to all of us. Would like to remember Challenger, Columbia, or Apollo 13. Astronauts very often are in serious danger to the life. However, the majority of similar cases, as a rule, remains in the history shadow. After all, it doesn't just take a keen mind to even qualify to go up in space, but as an astronaut, you also have to have mastered your emotions and not panic when something goes wrong while floating above the Earth. That's exactly what happened to Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield in 2001 when he conducted what was supposed to be a simple spacewalk to make a repair on the International Space Station, and he ended up having to make the trip blind after an anti-fog mixture of oil and soap from his helmet had gotten into his eyes. I was outside on my first spacewalk when suddenly my left eye slammed shut and was in great pain. Some substance had leaked into it, and it had gone blind. I thought, well, maybe that's why we have two eyes, so I kept working. But unfortunately, without gravity, tears don't fall. You just get a bigger and bigger ball of whatever you got in your eye mixed with your tears until the surface tension takes it across the bridge of your nose like a tiny waterfall into your other eye. Now I was completely blind outside the spaceship. Fearing that the pain was being caused by a gas leak inside the suit, the mission control advised him to open the valve of his spacesuit. As soon as he did that, the oxygen hissed out and his tears dried. Soon his vision was restored so he could finish the spacewalk. There are a lot of things to like about walking in space, except for the fact that you can't scratch your nose. A spacesuit, after all, is really more of a space vehicle, with its own sealed environmental system that must remain sealed if it's going to keep you alive. You could no more open your helmet to relieve an itch or clear a fogged visor than you could open a window of your spacecraft itself. What started off as a fairly routine spacewalk for the International Space Station in July 2013 quickly turned into something much scarier when water started leaking into an astronaut's helmet. Puzzled, but nevertheless concentrated on the mission, Luca Parmitano continued to work until water didn't begin to close in, literal sense his view in the spacesuit. He reported about the event in Control Center, which demanded immediate termination of work in an outer space. Of course, spacesuits are not supposed to fill with water in the first place, but what if one did? What if the impossible thing did happen? The choice then would be between death by drowning in the fishbowl of your helmet or death by instant suffocation in the vacuum outside. Surviving to breathe earthly air once again is not among the options. That at least is how it seemed to Parmitano on that summer day when his spacesuit went murderously awry. That's how it seemed too to his fellow spacewalker Chris Cassidy, who watched in horror, helpless to assist him, and to the joint mission controls in Moscow and Houston as Parmitano fought to survive as no astronaut or cosmonaut ever had before. Parmitano explained that at a certain point he couldn't see much more than a few inches in front of him, making it exceedingly difficult to know where the airlock was located. Eventually, the spacewalker was able to use his safety cable as a guide, leading him toward the airlock, where crew members helped him to remove the spacesuit. Then it became clear that the failed cooling system built into the back of the Parmitano helmet was the cause of the water attack. On March 18, 1965, Alexei Leonov stepped outside the thin metal shell of Voskhod 2 to float in the harsh void of space. For 12 minutes and 9 seconds, Leonov opened the doors on an entire new branch of exploration as the first spacewalker. It was nearly a disaster. Leonov's suit had expanded due to the pressure difference outside the capsule. His hands slipped out of his gloves. His feet came out of his boots. Leonov was in danger of being stranded outside his ship because he had become too bulky to pull himself back into the airlock. His solution was drastic. He opened a valve to slowly release oxygen, depressurizing his suit until it was small enough to squeeze within the relative safety of the spacecraft. Despite breathing pure oxygen before exiting to reduce nitrogen in his bloodstream, this unplanned depressurization brought him to the edge with pins and needles. Like a diver rising too quickly to the surface, he almost got the bends, a problem modern spacewalkers still anticipate by breathing oxygen before venturing outside the International Space Station. Leonov was supposed to re-enter the airlock feet first. He crept in head first. This meant turning around in tiny space. It was the most difficult thing. I'm in this suit and I had to turn around in the airlock. But with the perspiration, I couldn't see anything, says Leonov. Inside the thin metal capsule, Belayev, a former World War II fighter pilot, was waiting. Leonov took the seat beside his friend. From there, the story only gets more incredible. An equipment failure forced Leonov and Belayev to fire the rockets manually for re-entry, a precision task typically reserved for a computer. One small mistake would have cost them their lives. They made it, only to crash land in the Siberian woods, surrounded by predators and the unforgiving cold. As re-entry had been significantly off course, no one at ground control knew where they were. The capsule's heating system failed to work, and Leonov's spacesuit was full to his ankles with sweat. He later said it was so bad he lost 6 kilograms during the flight. Wringing the moisture from their clothes as best as they could, the cosmonaut watched for wolves until the recovery crew arrived the next day. But the area was so heavily forested, the helicopter had to land 9 kilometers away, and the rescuers had to ski to the Voskhod 2 craft with warm clothes, food, and TV cameras. Do you know any other scary stories in space? Tell us in the comments section. Remember to like the video and don't forget to click subscribe to stay with Googolplex.